Hello, MotoAmerica fans. It's time for another episode of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you may even learn something from this unlikely pair and their special guest. The mic is yours, Paul and Sean.
Hello, and MotoAmerica fans, and welcome to this latest edition of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. I am Bice in Ohio. A little cold today, and I'm joined by our communications manager, Paul Carruthers, who is in Southern California, and I bet you it's not cold at all there. How's it going out there, Paul?
I love how we give everybody a weather report.
Well, it's kind of important. We're in such disparate areas, so
it's been unreal here. The weather's been so nice, but actually, believe it or not, there's a 50% chance of it raining tonight, and it's supposed to rain the rest of the week. So we kind of need it. It's always funny when they say it's like 40% chance of rain, because I take that as meaning it's 60% chance of it not raining. But we'll see. But we could use the rain for sure.
You know, it's funny because for a long time, I actually keep my I have one of my areas that I like to look at for weather as San Diego, just because for sure, and I know that's where you're from, although Costa Mesa, where you are, is further north. But as far as San Diego goes, I've always thought of it being room temperature the whole time there, and I know that's where you're from. And I just have always had it as like, well, look at what it's like there, you know. I don't know why I torture myself that way, but I do like to find out what's going on out there. That's for sure. So.
Yeah, I think it's as everyone knows, the weather out here is pretty nice, and it's hard to beat San Diego's weather for sure. So
yeah,
it's easier to beat the weather. I know it's harder to beat the weather than it is to beat their football team. I can tell you that much. I agonized through that last night.
Threw a couple more interceptions last night, right? But
don't remind me.
We're talking about the Chargers, of course. So let's move on from that. Today we're talking with Ben Gladdie, who is one of our youngest riders in the series. He actually joined our Liqui Moly Junior Cup class right after he turned 14 in June this year. It was this year. And so he raced right immediately after that, and he didn't get a full season. And obviously, I think he got 5 races in with us, but in short fashion, he ended up on the podium. But he's from New Hampshire, northern part of New Hampshire, which the weather is even more wintry probably up there. So let's bring Ben in and find out if there's snow on the ground. Ben, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good. So what's the weather forecast from where you're located in New Hampshire, which is in the Lakes region, right, as they call it?
Yeah. Right now it's like around 20 to 30 degrees, raining, and we've gotten some snow. It's started to melt with the rain and stuff, but yeah, it's been cold. It's definitely cold here.
But you actually are kind of, you were born in New Hampshire, right? I mean, you're 14 now, but you are from New Hampshire and have lived there your whole life so far, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
So you're familiar with the fact that it's pretty much 4 seasons, or maybe even 2 seasons from when I used to live in New Hampshire. I felt like it was either hot or very cold with a lot of snow. But at any rate, you've been able to keep yourself active all year round, obviously riding a motorcycle when the weather's good, but you also do some snowboarding. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do some snowboarding when it gets cold, and if it starts to get too cold, I mean, we ice ride all winter, but if it's in the negatives, we kind of step away from that for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to think, Sean, is he our youngest ever guest?
You know, I know.
I guess we had Rocco.
Yeah, but he might have been 15. A few months younger than Rocco, I believe. So, because he got a full season in last year. So you probably, I would say he is. If we haven't had anybody that isn't in the series, and Ben was one of the last ones to join our series this year. And June 14th, is that when your birthday is, Ben?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say
Sean, I bet you have an article of clothing on right now that's older than 14.
Every single bit of the clothing I'm wearing is older than 14 years old. I get some value out of my clothing. So. Yeah. Ben, so tell us, one of the things I want to talk to you about is you're from up in the Northeast and specifically in New Hampshire, and you've done a lot of racing at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, which we used to know as Loudon, or even before that, Barber Motorsports Park. It's got a long history, and you follow in a fairly long line of riders from that area. David Sadowski, Gerald Rothman used to race in that series, and your coach and team manager this year, Dale Quarterly, is from that area and obviously raced in the Loudon Road Racing Series. So is that where you got your start in road racing? Was at New Hampshire Motor Speedway?
Yeah, that's where I started racing big bikes. That was kind of the track that's closest to us. I mean, it's 20 minutes from our house. I could have started racing big bikes a little bit earlier if I had gone to VIR and gotten my license there, but I was kind of just starting road racing at around 12 years old and just figured it would be good to wait the couple of years and just get my license close to home and start working on it there.
Did you go through one of the things that's known up in that area is Penguin Road Racing School, which I know Eric Wood is, I believe he's almost in charge of it now. I know his dad started it, but are you a former student of Penguin, and are you still involved with the school?
Yeah, that's how I got my license. You have to go through the Penguin Racing School to get your license for Loudon. So I was doing that, and then they have another series that just Penguin Road Racing School puts on at a different track called Canaan, and they really helped me out a lot, and now I coach for them. And whenever they have a track day and I can make it, I go and coach for them.
Did you start out on dirt bikes?
Yeah, I started racing New Jersey Mini GP on a KLX 110. And then after that, that's when I kind of started getting into the big bikes. And I rode a 150R for a little while, riding Supermoto and things like that.
Tell us about Canaan, Ben. I don't know that track. Is that a road racing course in New Hampshire?
It's not necessarily a road racing course. They started. It used to be a dirt oval for sprint cars, and a guy rebought it and he turned it into a road race track. But he was originally running karts there, and then Penguin Road Racing School discovered it, and they wanted to put on events there and schools there because it's just a really laid back environment there. It's super smooth track. Unfortunately, it got all washed out and everything with a big rainstorm that we had, but they were able to rebuild it and get it back to how it was.
But it's paved though. It's a paved road course, smaller road
Yeah, it's a
course. Is that
paved road
correct?
course.
Okay. That's got to be funny because I mean, people don't think of Loudon or New Hampshire Speedway as being that large of a road course. It's so small that really the super bikes, we can't go on it anymore. I mean, they used to do like little over a minute laps there. And but for you from Canaan to New Hampshire Motor Speedway, that's got to feel like it's a much bigger track, but still not as big as some of the ones you raced in MotoAmerica this year, obviously, correct?
Yeah, Canaan's fairly small. I think it's around 1 mile, 1.2 miles. I think that's all it really is. So when you go to Loudon, it feels like the biggest track you've ever ridden, but then you go to some of the MotoAmerica tracks and it's just totally different from going different tracks.
Okay, so this year you obviously couldn't start with us until you turned 14. Was the build up for that? Did that seem like it took a long time because you knew you were going to be able to make your debut and you had to wait?
Yeah, I was watching every race. I wanted to be out there with everyone, and I mean, the team I was riding for, they were already up front at the first race of the season, so that gave me some confidence knowing that I was starting a little bit later. They'd have more things developed and stuff over the season with setup wise. So, I mean, I was kind of going off of what all the team had to say and what their setup would be. So, I mean, I was really eager to get out on the track after seeing how well they were doing in the first couple rounds.
And you hit the ground running. I mean, you scored points right away at Utah, scored 11 points in the second race there at Utah, and then you continued to build throughout the season. And I mean, it has to feel really good to finish the way that you did, with a fourth place and then a third place on the podium there at Barber.
Yeah, I mean, Barber was awesome. That's my favorite track. And I'd never been there before, and just going there, everyone said how great it was with the old pavement. We were one of the first ones out on the new pavement, so it was cool to be able to kind of test the track out for the first time. It's never really been ridden on.
So Ben, from what it sounds like, you were, and I think I remember seeing you with Quarterly and in the paddock. So you went to a few of the rounds before you even were going to be able to get on the track. Which is that correct?
No, I was watching them on the MotoAmerica Live Plus app. I wasn't able to get to any of the rounds.
Thank you for getting that plug in there. We set you up for that.
Yeah, that was nice. You threw that up there, and he smashed it perfectly, and got the plug for the MotoAmerica Plus and their Live Plus. So thanks for that, Ben.
Nice job. Tell us about your connection. How did you get involved with Quarterly? Our assumption is Quarterly's from that area and probably has a love for riders up in that area. Were you familiar with him before from him racing up at Loudon at times, or tell us how you got involved with that whole group?
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of heard his name around the paddock when I wasn't able to race at Loudon before that, but he never really raced at Loudon while I was there just watching. So Eric Wood was really kind of the one that gave me the idea to go to his team, and really that was one of the best decisions I could have made, was going with Dale, because he knows a lot of things. He knows bike setup. He knows what everything does. He's been racing longer than, I mean, all of us combined on the team, really. So it's cool to be able to have Dale in the paddock and just be able to talk to him about anything.
And what was it like to be around some of the other riders, like Jamie Astudillo, Teague Hobbs is on that team. Dallas was there for a little bit of the season. Tell us about the group that you were racing with, and did you learn anything from those other riders who were actually racing in the class you are in?
Yeah. We all would come in and talk about setup, and we wouldn't hide anything from each other. Like, if you asked a question about what we were doing, we'd tell each other. I mean, we were all friends, so everything just kind of would get talked about, and nobody would hide anything from anyone.
So going into next year, you looking at a similar program, same team?
Yeah. I think the plan is going to be to go with Dale, but we're definitely talking. We're talking to teams and stuff, so that's definitely our plan, though, is we're kind of hoping to end up with Dale again.
Ben, tell us a little about Quarterly Racing. One of the things we're not really up on is there was some talk at the end of the year, and his partner is Bob Robbins, and there was some talk about whether Bob was going to continue, whether Dale was going to continue. We weren't really sure, but do you know, it sounds like Dale's going to be involved. Is Bob going to be back as well? Can you tell us what the future is of that team?
I know for sure Dale is coming back. I mean, I don't really know what Bob is doing. I've heard some things around the paddock, but I don't know for sure what Bob is doing.
Well, it's good to hear that Dale's going to be still involved. He's probably the prime person for developing young riders in our series with what he's doing with Quarterly Racing on track development, and certainly it's a good group to be involved with. And he's had some solid riders, and even for you, did you expect in 5 races to get on the podium in MotoAmerica? And I'm not trying to diminish your talent, because we know you have a lot of talent, but it's a big deal. You're only 14. You were barely 14 when you started. Obviously, you just switched over. Is that something you expected to do, or did it surprise you a little bit?
Going into Barber, I knew I had some good pace, but I mean, the beginning of the season, I really didn't expect to get a podium. I mean, I was hoping for a couple top 5s, possibly a podium, but I wasn't really expecting it, because MotoAmerica has a variety of riders. They're all great riders. So, but when we got to Barber, I mean, I knew I had a good bike, and I was feeling good right from the first practice. It just kind of got into my flow early in the weekend, and that was just kind of what I needed to get going for the weekend and get on the podium.
It's been a fast development for you. One of the things I'd like you to talk to the listeners about is, and it's going to be hard for you, because I can see that we know that you're pretty humble about your accomplishments, but you've done a lot at a young age, and especially within that Loudon Road Racing series in the club racing. level. And tell us what you've done in as far as what your accomplishments have been, considering your young age also, but overall, and even how it ended up this season, because you raced in that championship, I believe, while you were racing in MotoAmerica. So give us a rundown on what that's all about.
Yeah, Loudon, I just got my 400 built for the beginning of the season, and I mean, I got Rookie of the Year at the end of the year last year, and wasn't able to win any championships because I went from novice to expert in one season, so that automatically put me out of the points for everything. But yeah, Loudon is definitely a good track. I mean, they have a lot of stuff going for them, and bouncing between my Moto America bike and my club bike was definitely a little bit difficult. Because I have some different parts on my club bike than I do my Moto America bike, but I found that the Moto America bike was definitely working better. So we took some of those parts that Dale was using for Moto America and put them on my bike, and that's how I was really able to kind of win the both championships this past season at Loudon.
And yeah, and it's true that you something about you were the youngest rider or something. Tell us what that accomplishment was as far as your age.
Yeah, so Loudon, I was the youngest racer ever to get a CCS license at Loudon. So I was 13. You're supposed to be 14, but and that's kind of the real reason why I got into Moto America this year. If I wasn't able to do that, I would have been just club racing this year and would have been entering Moto America next year or this coming year. So that was definitely a big part of how I ended up in Moto America this year, and how my success has kind of been created was because I was able to race there a year early.
So next year, I mean, going into next season's MotoAmerica Liqui Moly Junior Cup championship, excuse me, Rocco Landers is going to be gone. He obviously dominated the series this year. It seems like it's pretty wide open. Do you go into a Road Atlanta thinking I'm going to be the next Rocco?
I mean, I'm hoping I can be the next Rocco. I mean, for the season, but he had some good pace all season, and he was the one to beat all year. And I know Dallas beat him once at VIR and at Utah, but I'm VIR he was struggling a little bit. So I mean, I hope I can do the same thing that he did into the season and be able to kind of start the season off good and strong with a couple of first place finishes.
So the tracks that you missed last year in MotoAmerica in the beginning of the season, are any of those tracks that you've raced at before, or is it going to be all new up until Utah?
They're going to be all new up until Utah, but they're not continuing Utah next year. So, Indy is going to be new, and so is Washington.
So you haven't raced at a Road Atlanta?
I've never raced
Cool.
Road Atlanta, no.
And you'd mentioned VIR earlier, but you haven't actually been to VIR or raced on that track then?
No, I have not.
Okay. So, Ben, here's a question for you. Put on an analyst hat for a minute. I want to ask you a question that you may not be able to answer because I haven't been able to answer it, but then I'm not a road racer like you. What is it about Rocco Landers that made him, he was on essentially the same bike as a lot of the riders in the class, the Ninja 400 Kawasaki, as it was the bike that you were on. What do you think he was doing or did do to make him so dominant this year? What do you think is the skill in his game that what made him what he was this past year?
I think he just had everything figured out from the first round. Everyone else in the Junior Cup was still kind of learning, and he just knew what was going to happen, it seemed like, and he just knew everything to do, whether he was getting pressured or if he was just set on sail and checked out. So, I mean, I think he just had everything he needed from the first race of the season, and that just carried his confidence all season. He just got faster and faster.
And what happened with your rise towards the end of the year? Do you think that you developed more confidence as you got in there?
Yeah, and we were figuring out setup with the bike. I mean, confidence was definitely a part of that, but I mean, I didn't really know what to do for setups, so we were just kind of winging it with setup, and we were struggling with it all year, and finally we got it figured out at Barber, and that's where it really showed that we had figured it out. I mean,
Now on that bike, it's not like it's a super bike, for example. So, I mean, once you do, whether you stumble upon the right setup or you work hard towards it and you chip away and you finally get it, once you get it from track to track, it's just minor little tweaks, right? From the setup that you find.
Yeah, Barber, we try to set up straight from first practice, and that was how I rode the bike all weekend. So, like, we didn't make any changes after qualifying after the first race. We just rode the bike how it was all weekend, and that's the setup. As you go faster, just gets better on the bikes. It's not like you're riding something else where as you go faster, the setup gets worse. I mean, as you ride a 400, just the harder you ride, the better the bike handles.
Tell us about what it's like to set up a junior cup bike, Ben, because, obviously it's different than a super bike that has almost an endless amount of adjustments you can make to the electronics and various things on the motorcycle. With regard to the Ninja 400 and in junior cup, what kinds of things can you adjust? And you don't have to be specific in terms of the actual settings, but are you able to do things like the preload, ride height, damping of the rear shock, and is there anything you can do with what's on it for electronics? Tell us what's involved in when you say getting the setup right.
It's just rebound settings and what springs you're comfortable on. You can change rear shock springs, front fork springs, and just basically anything with the suspension you can change. Preload, things like that, and to do with the suspension you can change.
So there's quite a bit then. There's more than people think. You don't just get on that bike and ride it like it is. You can change some things based on your style of riding and your weight, things like that. Can you do anything? Well, let's see. So obviously preload. So mostly suspension, gearing, of course, front and rear sprockets. Do you do much changes on that?
Yeah, definitely going track to track. Yeah, we change that a lot. That varies through the weekend. I mean, the faster you go, the either better or worse your gearing will get. So we try to figure that out early in the weekend.
In addition to racing, you're probably a pretty big fan of the sport. Do you find yourself, do you get out and watch the other races as much as you can and other practice sessions?
Yeah, I mean, me and Rocco would jump on a scooter or something, and we'd go watch races. I mean, anyone else really that was around, or Gus Rodeo, anyone on the team, we would all go watch races and just kind of talk about what they were doing. I guess. I mean, we weren't really thinking about it. We were just talking about like how it looked cool, what they were doing, or what they were doing, and we kind of found ourselves doing it ourselves on the track.
Do you have goals at this point as far as what your racing career, what you'd like it to look like, or are you just taking it 1 year at a time?
No, I mean, next year my goal is to kind of win the championship, which I mean, that's kind of everybody's goal, but that's really what my goal is. And then, I want to get into the Red Bull Rookie Cup, see if I can make it into the Rookies Cup, and then hopefully get overseas kind of after this year and start doing stuff over there.
Ben, one thing I wanted you to talk to Paul about a little bit, because Paul's really into this, is you're a pretty avid mountain biker in terms of doing downhill racing and stuff, and Paul does some of that too. So tell us about what you've accomplished or done in that, and if it's something you do with an equal amount of attention as road racing, or do you use it as training for road racing? And tell us about what you're doing there.
I use it for training for road racing. It basically, yeah, that's all I really use it for is training. I don't really do anything else with it. That's all I do, really.
But you go to, I think, is it Gunstock you go to and go to on a downhill course or something? You tell us what that is.
Yeah, they have the terrain park with like the jumps and rails and stuff. I mean, I'll go to that a little bit and hit some stuff, but I mean, I've never really taken snowboarding seriously. It's just a fun way to kind of train, and you can walk up the mountain. If there's this one jump you want to hit, you can go down and walk up and just keep hitting the same thing over and over. So you're getting a good workout doing that.
I inadvertently switched gears with you. You're talking about snowboarding, but don't you also do some downhill racing with mountain bikes as well?
Yeah, I don't really race downhill. I just ride it for fun.
Okay. Tell us about it, and Paul, jump in and say if you've ever done that too. I'm kind of curious about it a little bit.
Yeah. So downhill, you take the lift up. And you basically like snowboarding. You take the lift up, and then the people up top they unload your bike, and you're free to ride whatever trail you want to go down. I mean, they have anywhere from trails that are like riding on a sidewalk to trails that you ride down vertical stuff with rocks and jagged rocks that are sticking out at you to anything from like 30-foot jumps to that. So definitely that it helps with like going through the trees, like picking your right line, and just everything like that that kind of helps you with road racing.
So Sean, all that stuff he said is the stuff I don't want to do. You know, big jumps, jagged rocks. My mountain biking is more. I enjoy going up the hill more than down. Not that I enjoy it more. That's not the right word, but it's safer. So my mountain biking is a lot of it's like more like cross country than it is the downhill stuff. Although I've done the ski lift thing and it's kind of fun, but yeah, I'd hurt myself if I did that too much.
but if you're doing mountain biking that goes up a hill, you obviously have to go down at some point down a hill, right? So what do you obviously not pedal?
Yeah, what goes up must come down.
Right. But is it mostly just braking when you're going downhill? You're probably not doing a whole lot of pedaling because it's gravity, or how does that work?
Yeah, when you're going downhill, you're just flying.
I mean, yeah, it depends on what trail you're on. I mean, some of the trails there's uphills as you're going downhill, so you gotta pedal to get up the hill and then go back downhill. So there's a couple of trails that do an uphill for a while and then go back down. So that's where you kind of end up finding yourself.
It's a good workout.
Yeah, it is.
John, you better get a mountain bike.
Well, you know, I like to hear about it. Let's put it that way. I want to also talk, Ben, about for riders your age, a fair amount of riders in our paddock are homeschooled, which you're doing. Tell us about, and the listeners about what that's like, how you do homeschooling. And I also want you to mention a couple of the courses you're taking, because it isn't necessarily reading, writing, and arithmetic like you think, you're going to have it at your age. But you've told me about a couple of courses you've taken, which kind of surprised me. They sounded like something you'd take in college, but tell us about how it works. Is it online? Are you at home? Talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm online schooled where I go. So I can do it really wherever I want to. I can take the computer to a MotoAmerica race and do it. But yeah, I'm taking sports marketing right now, personal training, and then just the standard math and English for right now.
So you're taking sports marketing in what would be the equivalent of, if you're 14, you're in 8th grade. Is that right? Or
I'm in ninth.
Oh, you're in 9th grade. You're in 9th grade taking sports marketing, which most people, I don't know how many high schools teach sports marketing, or junior high, middle schools teach that course. So how is it that you're able to do that? Oh yeah, you're in high school with 9th grade. Sorry about that. How are you able to do that? Is it just the way that coursework works that you can choose that?
Yeah, I'm allowed to choose whatever course I want to that is available. I mean, I could take a 12th grade English class if I was that far ahead. It doesn't matter what grade you're in. You can take whatever class you really want to.
And how do you know when you graduate when you're homeschooled? How does that work?
You have a full grade book, and actually my online school is connected through our public school where we are. So it counts all our credits, and I have to get 25 credits before I can graduate. So once I hit that 25, then I can graduate.
And you said you're affiliated with the local school. How does it work with you regarding, I don't know, socialization with other kids your age? Seems like the racing gives you some of that. But do you have any get-togethers with other homeschool kids? Do you ever go into the school that you're affiliated with? How does it work with, your peer group?
I mean, I'm still friends with a bunch of kids that I went to school with last year. So I mean, we still hang out and just ride dirt bikes because they ride too, but they don't take it actually seriously. They just ride trails for fun. But yeah, the homeschooling never really gets together. We never really meet or anything, so um, that's how that kind of works. But I still talk to people from our school, and I mean, I've gone in a couple times, like picking up my little brother or something from school, and everyone always sees me and says hi, so that's kind of cool.
I didn't realize. So you're saying your homeschooling just started this year. Up until this point, you've been going to a public school system then.
Yep.
Okay. Paul can tell you. Paul used to kind of do track schooling. Paul, tell Ben about that. How you did your schooling when you were younger.
Obviously, when we were traveling around doing the Grand Prix with my dad, the school wasn't really an option because we were from Australia and the school was in Australia and we weren't. But it was also a lot different because we didn't. It would have been nice to have stuff online, but ours was old school, so we did schoolwork and we had to mail it back, and then they mailed stuff back to us. And then one year, my dad's mechanic was also a school teacher, so it was kind of a mishmash of. It was mostly the school of hard knocks, I think. But anyways, I survived, and I made it through high school, and I made it through college, and I'm trying to make it through life, so all good. But it's a little bit different. But it's the same kind of deal. And the thing is, you talk about the socialization and stuff. I mean, it's like I was in a similar situation, but luckily there's, when we did Grand Prix racing, there's other families there and they have other kids that are in the same situation, the same age or a bit different age. So you hang out with them and do stuff with them just like you would with other school kids. So you still get all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
So Ben, you'll be doing a full season with us coming up this year. All 10 rounds. Well, I guess it's 10 rounds for the whole series, but we don't race at COTA with Junior Cup. But you'll be ready to go with that. Will you be able to do any testing, or are you going to any tracks either by yourself or with Eric Wood, who's with Penguin Road Racing, or with Quarterly with Dale?
Yeah, I'm going to Homestead at the end of this month. I think it's the first weekend in December. I'm going to Homestead for a Penguin Road Racing school, and I'm going to help out teach there and do things like that. I mean, that's where I went for my first test last year with Quarterly. So maybe Dale might be there. Not 100% sure, but I mean, I'm kind of hoping he's there so we can get a test in and just see what we're kind of working with.
It's cool you get to be an instructor because it keeps you on the track more.
Yeah.
Right.
You get a lot more drag.
How is it? What's it like to just turn 14 and you're an instructor? How does that work? Do people who are most everybody's probably older than you and you're telling them how to do stuff? Is that well received? How does that work?
Yeah, when I kind of tell them or give them instructions or something, they don't really listen to me. So I kind of got to get somebody else to go over and talk to them. Like if they're doing something wrong on the track, like they cut through something and they weren't supposed to, like just they don't like to listen to me. So
That's
I
funny.
have to go get somebody else to talk to them because they just never listen to me when I try to talk to them.
Yeah, but then when you're on the track and you just throw it up the inside of them on the brakes, I'm sure maybe then the next time they might listen.
No, they still don't listen. Then they just ignore me.
Oh, that's funny.
Talk to us a little bit about what we refer to as Loudon. Paul can tell you he's been there a lot of times back in the day when we would go there with the AMA. And you said the track hasn't changed all that much either in surface or certainly in layout from when they redid it after it was Barber Motorsports Park. I had joked with you about my recollection of Turn 3 when I did the Friday 5 with you a few weeks ago. But you said the layout of the track and the surface even is kind of the same as maybe we remember it.
Yeah, it's the exact same. There's definitely a few more bumps than when you guys were there, but yeah, like there's some pretty good bumps that you can almost jump on the track. I mean, turn 3 is like a whoop section. So.
Oh, next year you're going to have to go talk to Wayne Rainey and remind him he broke his elbow at Loudon because he crashed and actually there was just a random boulder on the outside of the track that he hit his elbow on and broke it. So I'm sure if you bring that up to him, it'll bring back some memories of Loudon to him. That's actually where he had his first professional road race, I think. Yeah,
Yes, it was.
he
Yeah,
won a
it
250
absolutely
novice
was.
race there or something on a Kawasaki, right?
Yeah, came all the way across from California and went to that first race. So for you to go, it's kind of funny, Ben. Your first professional race, you came all the way across and raced in Utah. So you got that in common with a 3-time world champion and 2-time AMA Superbike champion.
Yeah.
So you got some shoes there to fill, and you're already started on your way. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's cool. I never knew that his first race was at Loudon.
Yep. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, of all places. Yeah, that was a pretty important track back in the day. Sure you've heard stories about that. That was one of the ones on the series. I think Penguin's been around almost as long as that. I have a trivia question for you, Ben. Do you know? I don't know if Paul knows this answer, but do you know why it's called Penguin Road Racing School?
I do not know.
Paul, have you ever heard this story?
No. Go ahead, Sean.
Okay. Even if you did, you're going to let me tell the story.
Honestly, I don't. I don't know.
And well, what I heard, and Ben, if I'm wrong, let me know that you talked to Eric. But as far as I remember, I think Jerry, Eric Wood's dad, came up with the name because when you road race and you crash, like in the middle of the track, you stand up and you don't know which way to go, so you kind of like shuffle off the track like a penguin. Because, instead of like diving, you kind of like trying to get out of the way of the traffic. So you kind of stand bolt upright and sort of shuffle real quick off to the side. So that's why they called it Penguin Road Racing, because you look like a penguin when you're out in the middle of the track if you crash.
That can't be true.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's funny. I've never heard that one.
He's being more polite. I think you're
I'm telling you, I'm not
crap.
making it up. I could be, but Ben, please ask Eric about that and let me know if I'm even close to being right. Okay. Exactly.
All right, guys, let's.
All right, cool. We did a good session. Yeah,
it was nice
Paul,
talking
wrap it
to you,
up.
Ben, and we expect big things from you. The way you, it was nice having a new face in the media center and the post race press conference with you there at Barber. So we're expecting to see that face again right away at Road Atlanta. So don't let us down and continue to train hard and work hard this winter. And we'll look forward to seeing you at Road Atlanta in April.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. We're glad you could join us.
Thanks for being on.
All right,
Ben.
Sean, you guys take care.
Thank you.
And we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Okay.